Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Telling It Like It Is. My name is Jade Alberts, the founder of Peer Guidance. Before we get into conversation today, I just want to talk about what's scrolling on the bottom. We're having our second Entrepreneur Mental Wellness course, Thriving Minds, Empowering Entrepreneurs. It's co-hosted with us at Peer Guidance with Sarah and Kira of Collectively Tangled. We have 57 entrepreneurs sign up for the first one. This next one is next week. We're excited about it. Again, we want to make sure that this journey you don't take alone. And speaking of journeys not taking alone, this is what we're here to talk about. Shane and Nathan from Innovate Cochrane. How are you today?
Doing fantastic.
Just fantastic? Hey?
Yep. Capital F, fantastic.
Yep. Should we talk about the Van Damme movies like we were before, or should we get right into things here?
Is this a 2-hour podcast, or what's going to happen?
Yeah, right, exactly.
No, I've been big fans, and Shane and you met, probably about a year ago, and we moved Founders Coffee, and you guys are promoting it out there. It's a great ecosystem, and Nathan, we're newly acquainted, and the vision that you guys have had out there is great. It's been fantastic. It's like we always call it the hidden gem in Alberta because no one knows about it, but we need to shout about what's going on in Cochrane a little more. So why don't we kick it off with, let's talk about that hotbed of tech that's been there, and and how you're moving Innovate Cochrane to thrive with this.
Nathan, do you want to start? You've been there a little longer than I have, then I can jump in. I love it.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, thanks, Jade, for having us on here. This is great. Yeah, so I've been in the community for about 8 or 9 years. Shane a little bit less than me, but just like a lot of people, landed in Cochrane, love the community. Was coming back to the Calgary area for my day job, professional world, and Cochrane was just a great size of a community to land in. It's great for family, but as I got there, got settled, I realized there was a lot more going on in Cochrane than I even realized, particularly around technology. So obviously Garmin was a face on the building that I saw when I first landed, and I started to understand the backdrop to that being, really a husband and wife and some other folks in the community got together and built an initial company called Dynastream Innovations, which then Garmin Global purchased, at one point and basically landed, Garmin Canada in Cochrane, which may be a detail that not a lot of people know. This is Garmin's location in Canada. And just recently they put another story on their 2-story building. Now the 3 stories, they just announced a large growth path. And so that's the known technology face typically of Cochrane. But another known face, so it would be Four Eyes Innovations, another, sport technology power meter company, which actually Shane and I both had the privilege of serving on their senior leadership team. Me under Director of Continuous Improvement, and Shane, came in through the acquisition that I'm sure he'll refer to, and I won't steal all of his thunder, just some of it. But yeah, Four Eyes was a great exposure to me of the tech, ecosystem that was already, it has been in Cochrane for a while. A lot of us have been in and out of it, but that was part of the genesis, I guess you could say, of some of the innovation conversations. It was around tech, and now this innovation topic is really exploding into a broader conversation about what is innovation, how do you do community differently, and there are the tech layers, but there's a lot of other exciting layers that are going on out there too. But yeah, that was my own kind of introduction to Cochrane the longer I was there.
Mm-hmm. No, that's it. Some Shane and Dad.
Yeah, well, so I landed in Cochrane 4 years ago. It was in Kitchener-Waterloo, so I was part of that tech ecosystem, starting with RIM BlackBerry for a bunch of years, and then actually helped run a high-tech incubator over there on the University of Waterloo campus, or research and tech park, and then was part of an early startup. And as we grew, we met the founders of Four Eyes, as Nathan referenced, at a Cycling Canada event. And we thought, hey, these guys just sold to Garmin. They probably got some money and they invest in us. And they said, no, we don't want to invest in you. We want to buy you and move you to Cochrane. And so 6 of us from the company all moved west back in I don't know what year it was, 2019, 6 months before COVID is when we moved, because no one worked remote back then, so we couldn't work. And then 6 months later, everyone went remote. But we moved out here, and it was either choosing Northwest Calgary or Cochrane, and the community of Cochrane was just fantastic. Like Nathan talked about, what's here, just the family, the mountains, the lifestyle. I think that resonates with a lot of people. So that's how we landed out here. But what was interesting was between us being acquired and us moving out here. There's a 4-month period. And at that time, one of the founders of Four Eyes brought the mayor, Jeff Geung, and some councillors and others out to Kitchener-Waterloo to check out the tech ecosystem. They had a vision to build an incubator similar to that in Cochrane. And so I was fortunate enough to help tour around with them in not only Kitchener-Waterloo, but also the second time they came back to visit in Toronto to see some of the different ecosystems, Communitech, the Accelerator Center, Velocity, DMZ, Mars, and check out those. And so, we come out here, and then 4 years later, a lot has progressed. We'll get into that a little bit more. But what's been neat is that the new incubator that's been stood up is just a farther testament to what's going on with the tech. Nathan mentioned Garmin, which was previously Dynastream, and out of that, Four Eyes was birthed, brought us together. But there's so many other different tech stories out there. MC Things exists out here. I think there was an article written up about them 2 or 3 years ago in the Herald. It's an IoT company. Tom and crew run that. Hunterwood, the Founders Coffee that we've taken and borrowed from you and right there. So the president of Hunterwood, it's this large ag tech company situated right in the middle of Cochrane. He came out to Founders Coffee, and he's talking about what they're doing, and they're an international business that's located right here. And then a close friend of ours also has a company. He was from BC, moved here, and he's got 30 people, just raised a large chunk of cash, software platform for field service ops for heavy machinery, just based in Cochrane with remote workers around the world. And so all these stories that, we'll get into are being surfaced by some of the efforts we're trying to do here.
Well, you know what? Let's talk about some of these stories. I mean, this is one of the reasons I started telling it like it is, 6 years ago. Like, we weren't shouting from the mountaintops. We weren't doing that, even in Calgary, right? Like, I consider our whole, everybody part of Calgary, even though, we all have different sections of it. So I guess what's the next steps? Like, you say, like, how are we going to again, take away the Garmin and the Four Eyes because they're big, and let's talk about moving forward in these companies. How are we going to amplify them out in the world, and how is Innovate Cochrane going to help them?
Mm-hmm. Shane, you're so between the two of us, Shane, we are 2 out of 4 of our founder board, with Innovate Cochrane, and really, yeah, it's a nonprofit. It's a community initiated, driven, fueled, agency, a catalyst function in our community. And all 4 of us actually come with very different skill sets. Like our other 2 board members, Sam and Mark, are both, entrepreneurs in our own community. They're both started up multiple ventures themselves. Mark runs the Corner co-working space. Sam is, really strong on kind of social media or events, that kind of thing in the community. So she's active there. Shane obviously came from the Kitchener-Waterloo, that tech ecosystem, and is bringing a lot of that great contribution to our town. Mine is corporate innovation, and sitting in the, in the office of my day job here in transportation, downtown Calgary. So we all brought our unique pieces. When it came to, helping startups, we already had, Mark from the Corner co-working space. He had already, on his own impetus, had started up Startup Cochrane, which is a monthly gathering. It's one of our listed events now on innovatecochrane.com. But really a lot of different irons and fires to support people that have an idea, don't know where to start, maybe aren't tied into the greater Calgary ecosystem yet. This is a way for us to say, hey, let's make space in Cochrane for people living in Cochrane who want to start something and grow it and scale it. Well, if they started in Cochrane and they're already rooted here, pretty good chance they're going to stay here, flourish, and then it'll just bring more economic, boon. It'll bring social, economic, like there's all kinds of layers of value. And so for us to bring our 4 people together, made this board, made this, a nonprofit, but really there are all kinds of connections that are all hooked together to form kind of a fabric that people can land on if they have an idea, if they're an entrepreneurial side, maybe they're a social entrepreneur. We have a pilot going right now with our friends at Unbounded Thinking that's actually targeting scale up and mature businesses, while we have the business incubator that the town started and Shane's an active part in. So we're really touching on a lot of different pieces of the puzzle within our community around people wanting to start up, scale up, and how do we make intentional connections happen that don't exist yet. And just by the act of making those connections, we're seeing all kinds of emergent outcomes by just us being the catalyst connector. That's one of our key value propositions, I would say, as an agency in the community currently.
I love that, catalyst connector. Good word. I'm stealing it. I'm writing it down right now.
It's yours. You're welcome. Okay. It's all yours.
Shane, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I've appreciated between Nathan, Sam, and Mark and what they were doing even before I arrived here on scene in Cochrane. It's how do we bring this community together? And that word connection really resonates with me. I enjoy being able to connect, and I've been fortunate enough to connect with, Jade, with you. With when I first moved here, I knew Ray DePaul from MRU. From old BlackBerry days, and I'd asked him, hey, knowing the KW ecosystem, who's going to be some key people to connect with there? And one of the first people he pointed me to was Terry Rock. And so I got a chance to meet him, before Platform was even built as the physical location. I know it's much more than that now, and it's just been neat journeying with seeing what Platform and just so many other organizations. You've got CIC, which is bringing everything together. And, that's how we meet. Like you and I were on CIC meetings, Jade, and Founders Coffee and all these different connections. Everybody in this community is really willing to help out. And I'd say, one of the things, almost jumping to the very end of, what I suggest and tell people when they're getting into the game, either an entrepreneur, startup, or somebody who's supporting them is ask. Just ask. If you don't know, if you can bring that humility to the table and say, I don't know, like, what should I do? And ask. And there's so many people here that are willing to help. And I think I've appreciated that getting here, plug into the ecosystem. And they're willing to come alongside you and kind of point you, if they don't know, point you to where else you can, whether it's kind of talent, whether it's expertise, whether it's resources, finances, there's a lot. And, we could go on, and we'll probably mention a few more on the course of this podcast, but there is a lot here that's in Cochrane, but there's a lot here in the broader Calgary and surrounding beyond. And so I think that's part of what we're trying to do here, Nathan and I and the rest of the board, is how do we kind of open and expose some of the people in Cochrane that are looking to bring their idea, whether it's profit or not for profit, and grow their business. How can we connect them with not only just different ideas and each other, but others in the community that are maybe a little bit farther on the journey that they can learn from?
Yeah, and again, I'm just going to comment here on Jeff Horton, as you can probably see in the screen, right? That's the one thing I love about Alberta, is that we are so collaborative. Everybody's open, and it starts at the government and it ends down at little guys like myself. And, everybody that's kind of gone through that journey is there to help. And again, I'm sitting here at Platform. Yes, we mentioned them. I go up to Edmonton Unlimited. You've got, everybody talks. Everybody makes sure that, everybody has the, know the right people to make sure their startup moves, the next step. And I think that Innovate Cochrane, this is, me talking and what I think, it's going to be a kind of a stepping stone for maybe company, or cities like Leduc or something that, everybody focuses on the two main cities. But what about all these little communities that have tech things that can't come into Calgary or Edmonton or even Red Deer all the time, right? Like, you're going to need a community to be around you to do that. And maybe they don't have founders coffees or things like that, but they need two inspirational people like yourself to say, hey, let's set this up and let's make this happen. And we're going to, commit a little bit of our lives for it.
I was reflecting on that actual topic this morning, Jay, just walking to the office here, that, I think every community like Cochrane is like many communities in our province and even across the country and beyond, where, we have a lot of the same kind of fundamental ingredients in the recipe. We have a chamber of commerce, we have a town administration, we have a library, and all these other functions. And then there's some other ingredients that maybe are unique to each, community that maybe changes the flavor of the cake you're baking, but the core ingredients are the same. Well, part of our experiment, and we've often referred to Cochrane as kind of an experimental bed, or like an environment where we can actually test hypotheses, but it's a community-wide experiment bed, and that's where we want to test things at a community level. How can we do things and then, have hypotheses, build experiments, do our learning cycles, like in, the lean startup kind of language. But then let's take what we're learning and let's share that out beyond our borders to the, even in the greater Calgary, to Okotoks, to Airdrie, and then even take from them, like, what are they doing that they've already tested that sends us down our path even further? Like that notion of community innovation, the nice thing about the word community is it can relate to three of us having a conversation. It can relate to, our community of Cochrane or greater or Calgary. And you just get those, the fundamentals are the same. That's the fantastic part. So yeah, we're testing things in Cochrane and for sure would love to keep connecting. The nice thing too, and I, just had lunch with our mayor the other day to make connection, reinforce connection. even at his level, in his particular role, he's part of the Mid-Sized Cities Caucus, and he's, a key leader in that space. Well, there's already preset bridges for us to take what we're baking in Cochrane, and then just sharing that inside out, from through his channels. Or each of us have our own network, our own social capital, and when we share that with each other, we get massive, exponential returns on what happens when we connect others to our network and vice versa. Like, that's a real tangible power that each of us has uniquely. If I look at my LinkedIn world, it's got, a few thousand people in it. Well, Jade, you have yours, and Shane has his, and I just went for coffee with a friend of mine that I knew in transport before. He's in Okotoks, entrepreneurial bent, sees what we're doing, wants to be involved. Mark from our board, just open a co-working space in Okotoks. Shane has a friend he knows in Okotoks. Well, we just introduced those guys together. Well, then we just made another little catalyst, engine component in Okotoks to complement what Okotoks is already doing from the mayor's office, from the economic development, from all the other folks down there. So it's like wildfire. Like, you're just literally dropping matches over the fence. That's probably a bad example. Pick another one, but you're lighting positive fires by just adding flame to what's already there. That's a terrible example. You can edit that out, Jade. Edit that out.
It's live. This is live TV, baby.
Oh, geez. Oh, well.
That's okay. Yeah. We have good. There's all analogies and analogy, but I do agree with you, right? And even we were Shane. We were together at Startup Canada, which is good to see Kayla and them bringing up that back out here. I helped them quite a few years ago, and bringing that community together, but. And even at the rural, Terry and I spoke on a panel at the RM in Banff. I think it would have been March-ish or something, right? And having all the RM people there, and the one thing I found about that is after I got off the stage there, I was kind of, I was almost attacked because they're like, how can we get somebody to come out to Vermilion? How can we get somebody to come out to Rocky Mountain House? How can we get someone to come here? Yeah. And I was like, all you have to do is ask. Like, if somebody came to me and said, hey, Jade, we want to put together a lunch or something, do you want to bring you and a couple of your colleagues? 100%, we're there, right? I mean, that was the big message that we were getting out there to the RM, saying, hey, we're here, we'll come out, we'll go out there, but we'll help you set something up. Let's do this together. So again, I think your situation here is going to be an inspiration, and we really need to share your story with everybody.
So Jade, even just listening to you, even asking, what I think is a great, and anybody that watches this or knows you knows that you have a zillion things going on at the same time, but yet you always will make time to go out for a drink with somebody, or just meet up for a coffee, or do these kind of conversations, which is fascinating, because it's very easy for us to say, like, the work I'm doing is very important, I need to keep doing this. But you realize that when you're giving and you're taking those extra moments to help out others and then connect others and then get out of the way and let them do it, like, it makes such a big difference. So I think, kudos to you for all the work that you're doing with this. And so I'm gonna interview you just for a question. Like, I look at all of these different events that you're doing. What is it that's driving you to be involved in so many things, with the blockchain, the startup idea? I just learned that. I didn't realize you were involved, but I was shaking my head inside. I'm like, of course you were involved in Startup. What is it with you that sparked you to continue to give like this to our community? What's driving that, and what sparked it? Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably I grew up in rural Sask, and it's kind of my small town. That's my small town. I went to Notre Dame. I was taught that, teamwork and it is the core of everything. You're stronger together. Startup TNT. I think we make better investments because it's a team doing the due diligence. And I really truly believe in that. And when I was driving my daughter down to drop her off at school, and she's like, she was telling me, oh, Dad, I saw you, I saw this, I saw that. She goes, you were probably popular in high school. I said, well, maybe. But I also hung out with I was at the arcade, I was shooting pool, I was hanging out with the nerds, I was a jock. I was with everybody. And I think that's just kind of the way we were brought up. And when I started in this ecosystem 9 years ago, it wasn't really like that. And it has been a transformation that just puts a big smile on my face, because is it perfect? No, but we are there. And I think that's what drives me, and you see other people doing it, and other people are like, hey, I want to give back. I want to make sure, like, Shannon and Unbound Thinking is another example, right? I go way back with Shannon. I love what him and Tristan and they're doing, and Freeman, right? And see them, out there sharing their knowledge and bringing everything in. I mean, that's just that. I think it's behind everybody now, and I've seen a lot of the rats get out of the race here that are just say, hey, give me a check, give me some money, pay me. You don't freaking see that anymore, and that's even better.
Yeah, I think about things like the rainforest. When I first got onto that, I just thought, I was reading through their social contracts, like that we're just gonna, because I was actually writing one, like just before we even filed, for our nonprofit status. We've been talking about innovation in Cochrane for years, and literally meeting every Monday night, a bunch of us in the community, for like 3 or 4 years after the Smart Cities initiative by the feds, a bunch of years ago. That was one of the key catalysts actually that brought a bunch of us together in the community to know each other, to then decide, okay, what are we going to do about this? We're passionate about innovation. Talk. Well, then I was writing up a social contract because I thought, we're going to build this organization from the ground up. How do we do it intentionally, and how do we create our own culture of innovation within Innovate Cochrane that can then ripple out into the community? I read their social contract. We did our launch in June of last year, our official kickoff launch, and we had the rainforest there because it was so kind of perfectly community innovation driven. That those principles are our principles. And I think they're a large reason why you think we're seeing that transformation or evolution of the ecosystem, that it is truly an ecosystem where it's a reciprocity. There's a give and receive. And to touch on something else, you said that notion of it's not perfect, but it's intentional and it's active, it's moving forward. I think that's our whole notion of community innovation for me, is each one of us has a unique puzzle piece. Let's just put it on the table. And sometimes we stick it, to try and put them all together, and sometimes they don't fit with each other, and that's okay. We're just, those iterations are actually helping us inform, Innovate Cochrane. What is our best contribution? When we're meeting with, Community Futures out in Cochrane, we're meeting with the chamber, with, the Cochrane Tourism, like we're putting ourselves at the table together to say, we can all lift each other. What are you doing? What are we doing? What's unique? Or where are we overlapping? Let's get rid of the noise. Let's not confuse people, but let's be intentional to align. And I think we get better value out of each of our contributions by doing it side by side with each other. And so we're even experimenting with what do those connections look like, in a common community just like ours, because a lot of the communities have the same actors as we do. So again, those are things, hopefully we can share that out, as we go forward.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing I wish is, in my wish list and things that I've been trying to move, other than investing in lifestyle companies and trying not to get everybody just give it to the VC investable companies, is having the RINs talk a little more to each other, and having RMs talk a little bit more and get involved. So that's, maybe that's an Innovate Cochrane thing.
There you go.
Maybe we get Mayor Jeff to, maybe get that on his mandate and saying, this is what we want to do. We want to have more. We want to include everybody in Alberta, because there's great freaking ideas like coming from all over this province, right? Like Fort McMurray and Kid Drop and why do they have to go to Edmonton all the time? Like, screw that. Like, we should have something like really positive up there.
Well, and Nathan mentioned this earlier with our mayor being part of and sharing that mid-size cities, that kind of that community of like 1 million strong, and then having it and formalizing it so that voice of these mid-sized communities is being heard. And it's neat to see what that group is doing and how they've kind of come together, formalize, get on the same page, so that everyone's got their own unique needs, but they're all, like Nathan was saying earlier, they're generally very similar in what we're doing out in these communities, and we can learn from each other and share our best practices and then pull them in from others just surrounding Calgary, but then the broader Alberta kind of province. Like, there's a lot to pull in there. One of the things that Nathan's doing, he probably won't brag about it, but so one of the Innovate Cochrane initiatives is this monthly community innovator series, where we will go out and we'll pick a community innovator leader and get them speaking. And so we've had somebody that runs our local pharmacy, 2 pharmacy there, we commit, at Hunterwood, we've had not-for-profit folks speak. It's neat to put on these different folks that are leaders in various smaller, larger tech, not-for-profit up front, and talk to them. What does innovation mean to you? And you hear many different versions of what innovation. I think one of the unique ones that we had heard was, what does innovation mean to you? And they're like, well, it's that your unique, almost like your God-given unique abilities that are allowed to shine through in an organization. So be you, but share that unique contribution with your organization. Like that's innovation, is not in this, follow this definition, this cookie cutter. It's who are you and how can you uniquely contribute your ideas, and then people listen and apply those. So I thought that was, and it's, we've had the Wolf Dog Sanctuary speak at the last one. And so we'll just go through and then we'll create this environment afterwards where you can kind of, and we do it in the Bound bookstore coffee shop. And so there's an environment where you can before and afterwards sit and chat and, beyond the Q&A with everybody that's there. So again, facilitating those intentional connections with others that you might otherwise never run into or collide with. And, we're just facilitating it. Like we're not telling them what to do. We're just facilitating it. And so that Q&A form, kind of like what you're doing here, Jade, it's, you're not lecturing. You're just, okay, let's get a couple of jokers on and see what they got to say. And, hopefully they bring to me, right? Like it's, what's going on in Cochrane. So.
Yeah.
No, I think it's great, right? I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan of it, right? Like it's, and you two jokers, if that's what you want to call yourselves, is have done a great thing and should be applauded for that. And I'm hoping it is an inspiration for many other rural communities around Alberta, that you just don't really. It doesn't have to be 15, 20, 40 people. It can be. It could be 8, it could be 10. Again, it could be small. You just need that network to come and meet like-minded people and be that support each other.
Yeah, I think everybody brings their own unique contribution. Like we're fairly tied in with the town of Cochrane, with town administration, town council. They play an important role as far as setting leadership and direction for our community, and then executing on it day to day on the administration side. In listening to our own mayor, Mayor Geung has been in his role now for 6 years. He's got 2 years left on this current term, but he's introduced, and the council has introduced, this notion of Cochrane 2050. So, when you think about a political cycle, well, you're kind of relegated to this, make an impression in 4 years, because you're going to want your seat again in 4 years. But how do you do that cycle differently, where yes, you have to govern it that way, but then as a community, how do we invite a long game perspective that's driven by leadership voices like our town council, but then is actually systemized into the administration side, so that those of us from our community can bring our unique contributions and find our fit in that conversation, but that it actually has an intentionality to it. Cochrane for sure is still one of the fastest growing municipalities in the country, per capita, and growth is a major challenge for us. We fully recognize growth is not everybody's challenge. It's a good challenge to have, and we're thankful that we have that challenge in Cochrane. But it is something that we have to be intentional about as a community. So in that sense, and you listed it in our preamble before the session, what are the greatest needs for innovation in our community? That's one of the taglines of Innovate Cochrane. And one of our greatest needs is, how do we, my middle daughter, grade 11 or grade 9, she says, Dad, I don't want anybody else to move here. And we're right out of the blue driving to school the other day. I said, well, why is that nice? She said, because right now I can go to the grocery store and people know me, but if people keep coming, pretty soon we're not going to know anybody in the community. And I thought, wow, that's quite insightful. So how do we get, for example, our population target, call it 80,000 in X number of years. When we get to 80,000, how do we preserve, the town? Eventually the town of Cochrane will become the city of Cochrane, I presume, but how do we preserve the town of Cochrane feel in relationships? And as new people come in, how do we invite them into the town of Cochrane feel, and really preserve that? It takes intentionality, it takes innovation on how you do community in new ways. So again, that's just a tangible example, I think, of what we're engaging in out there.
Oh, I think that's great. I think that leads right into our next question, is like, what's next for Innovate Cochrane? What's your goals? What's your long-term goals?
Shane?
So we actually had a board meeting. We were chatting about some of this just earlier this week. So I think as Nathan was kind of going through this, those intentional connections as we get bigger, how do we engage more people that are just a wide variety? And so I think we will continue to bring more people into Innovate Cochrane and just supporting and helping out. Like right now, there's kind of a core 4 of us, and then we've got an interim executive director, Kim Newtons, that helps out and does a ton of work with us. But I think for us, it's continuing to engaging the high schools. We've got some connections with them that we brought in. They're students, Nathan being a driver of that, bringing them in and videotaping our Community Innovator series. So you've got the high schools and more schools being built, more people bringing in, moving here, more businesses being brought up. We've got this incubator that I've been fortunate enough to be able to kind of get engaged with and help grow and build up. So we've got some startups right in the core of Cochrane. And what Cochrane wants to do is we want to help raise up our own businesses, help them start and grow, and give them all the support. And you look at what Platform and all these other organizations are doing in Calgary. We can leverage a lot of these programs that exist, whether it's funded by Alberta Innovates Catalyzer program, Jade, you were just helping out with earlier this morning. So we can leverage those, but also create our own community. And so as we continue to kind of look at the town growing, I think for Innovate Cochrane, it's how do we engage different organizations, even externally, to support, our folks at Prairies, Alberta Innovates, and others being very supportive of fostering these innovative growing communities. And so kind of tap into them, the resources that exist through them, but also being able to highlight, showcase, and surface what exists already. There's a lot of talent and experts and people that want to plug in, want to give back. And so if we can create a platform, because, I'm good at stealing things from you and others, Jade, to use that word platform. If we can help facilitate a way where they can connect and bring their ideas and grow their ideas, that's what we're looking to hopefully do. And so from a tangible side, we can be continuing to do these monthly events, and we promote that. You go to innovatecochrane.com and you can add to the newsletter and see what all we're doing. But how are we engaging just other actors in the community? The younger ones, I think the students, I think that's such a ripe opportunity to, and I was trading notes with one of the professors and Nathan to develop an initial relationship with them, or the teachers. And so we're having those conversations too. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more activities and events, but also these connections with Calgary and other smaller communities. And I would say, Nathan, maybe you can talk a little bit about the one pilot that you helped spearhead with Unbounded and Shannon, Tristan, and the crew. Maybe it's worth mentioning that, because I'm pretty excited about that. I know others are too.
Yeah, I mean, and like Shane said, we come from different we complement each other's backgrounds and passions. Shane really is bringing significant lift in that incubation, that early idea to ideation into startup. But my passion historically has been, organizations that maybe are more complex, have more, already established. How do you help them thrive, grow, innovate? And so that the pilot that we're doing this year right now, we're in the thick of it with 10 different organizations in our community. It's a partnership between Unbounded Thinking and Innovate Cochrane. And it's a community innovation ecosystem pilot. And so there's it's a 6 or 7 month project. We get together every month, and then we offer, one-on-one coaching to them. Tristan's been lending a hand there. And we use the Unbounded Thinking human-centered innovation management system. And then we apply it to all different kinds and shapes and sizes of organizations in Cochrane to test if we can actually build, a very basic innovation capacity building tool set and drop it into any size of organization and watch them grow and succeed with that. But then what if you put all those organizations into one ecosystem together intentionally? What's the next layer of emergent value that comes by just having them journey together in their innovation journey? And we're testing both of those things. We're testing, can you measure innovation maturity from a data-driven perspective? That's part of the Unbounded secret sauce. We're doing that at the individual organizations. We're also measuring data innovation maturity at the community level. Can you actually measure a community's innovation maturity? And then based on that insight, what other infusion of growth or learning or knowledge should we be bringing to complement? We're testing a few different hypotheses in there, but I really feel like what we're prototyping in Cochrane could very easily become a blueprint that we could land elsewhere as well. So very excited for the what's next on some of those experiments as well.
To that point, Nathan, one of the supporters of that is CIC. They've been a big supporter of what we're doing here. And then Jade, but at the beginning of the podcast, you're talking about getting the RINs kind of working together here. I think that's an opportunity with the CIC supporting this one and us taking to other communities. That's going to be a neat way where the Calgary Innovation Coalition and the other RINs are going to work together to say, hey, this is the pilot that's being supported by one RIN. I think we can take this to other RINs, and whether it's the mid-sized mayor's caucus and the RINs, I think there's a couple neat natural connection points across the province that will allow a natural and intentional kind of sharing of not only this pilot out, but hopefully coming back, and so we can learn. So, fortunately, I don't even have a very solid, detailed answer of what's next for Innovate Cochrane, because hopefully these initial things that we're doing are going to kind of sprout a whole bunch of different new opportunities that we're not aware of, but just try to embrace and continue to ask and keep an open mind along the way.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's not work in progress; it's innovation in progress. Right?
I like that. I'll take that. We'll trade phrases. I like that.
I'm out. Mic drop. That's it. I only have one good idea a day. That's it.
Okay, we'll take it from there.
You're ahead of the game.
So I guess we could probably talk for the next hour, on different things. And I do love my last question. And again, I've asked it 300 times, but I want to put a little spin on it. And I want to, kind of what we've been talking about has inspired me for this little spin. So I want to say, like, if you had one piece of advice for a rural municipality to get going and inspire them to do this, what would that be? Now on the spot.
I'll start. No, I'll start because you answered it in your question. I think it's get going. What do they need to do to get going? It's get going. So just stand up, put your hand up, and just say, hey, I'm passionate about fill in the blank. Is anybody else in the community passionate about this? And just take one step of your own and then watch what happens. Because I think we've seen where you don't know the people in your community that are just waiting for someone to take literally one step and say, hey, let's do something. I'm passionate about this. This is something that we know I would love to see in our community. And then that led to more conversations. And now, lots of people are rowing in that boat. That boat used to have one set of oars. Now it has all kinds of oars in it. But it starts with one step. So I think just that notion of don't wait for perfection, don't wait for an army, just put it out on social platforms, put it out to your community in whatever ways you have access to, and just get moving. And it emerges by just more connections. You can't actually plan for it fully, which is the fantastic part about it. But just act, just get moving.
I love it.
And reach out, and be okay with being needy. Like, hey, I need this, and then watch people share back to you out of their abundance. Yeah,
absolutely.
Man, so I'm picking up the themes of humility, of asking, of action. And man, I don't have a ton to kind of add beyond that. Besides saying that, just the power of connecting with others and just having each connection that I make, I learn something. It hopefully gives me an opportunity to kind of invest a little in them while learning myself. And man, I just got a lot of joy out of being able to help facilitate connections between other people, of which I don't know anything about this area, but you seem to be really passionate about it, and you seem to be really passionate about it. And how do you just bring them together? And by just acting, stepping out, and kind of making those connections to people, I think, we could get into it. I think, Sarah and Tangled and everything, like the challenges of the last few years, people are craving connections in many different ways for many different reasons. And so hopefully we and others can continue to help facilitate that and the connections. And I'd say this one with you, Jade, I've really appreciated the connections. And I know you are very open to doing what you can to connect. Like, what about this? What about doing that? Here, I'll put you on my platform. So we appreciate and value what you're doing in this work amongst, I could list off all your organizations, but I'd probably forget 15 of them. So thank you for having us on and for what you're doing to help connect the broader community. It's amazing the amount of people that know you and are inspired and are kind of pushed ahead by what you're doing. So
two thumbs up.
Thank you for the kind words. That means a lot, and that's kind of what you want to do. And I think even again, to quote Jeff here on the bottom, right? Look at Red Deer, boom, 100 members in 11 months. I mean,
yeah, that's amazing, Jeff. Yeah, absolutely.
That just goes to show you need one person, right, Nathan, to step up,
got it.
take the bull by the horn, and away we go, right?
You got it.
So,
you got it. Yep.
Awesome. What a great conversation, gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story, sharing your inspiration, and thank you for bringing communities together. I mean, we need more of that around Alberta, and I'm excited to watch what's next.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jade, for having us on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I hope everybody has a great Wednesday. Again, check out, I didn't even mention the links, but the link is in there. Innovate Cochrane, check it out. The Thriving Minds link is there as well. So I hope everybody has a great Wednesday. Gentlemen, we will chat with you soon, and have a great day.